All right. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Welcome to, it's not free beer day today, but it is a free beer tasting day today. So what I do every Friday and Saturday all summer long as I'm not in jail, which you never know up in northern Wisconsin, is that I give a free beer tasting on 4 o'clock on Fridays and Saturdays to get you all kind of raring to go before the rest of the night up north. So if you don't know who we are and you're here for the first time, you may be in for a surprise because we typically lean a little left at this bar. And if you don't lean left, thank you. I appreciate it. We may be the only bar that does lean left north of Madison. And we take pride in that because I'd love to have customers who are generally a little smarter, who are a little more empathetic, and care about their humankind a little more. And it seems like we're the only side that likes to do that. So today's going to be a special day because you may or may not have noticed that we've been in the national news for the last week. So I usually talk about all our beers and I talk about the history of our beers, but today's is going to be the focus on how many rules the Monaco Brewing Company has supposedly broken over the last 5 years. And I'll be able to weave that story in with all of our beers and wines throughout the course of the day. So thank you. In a good way or a bad way. If you talk to my fiance, she's not happy with what's going on right now. That's Tracy, everyone. Give her a hand for sticking with me. Okay, so the first beer we're going to have today is Mexican lager, which is, it's called the Gulf of Mexico. It is and will always be the Gulf of Mexico to me. Yeah. All right, so we'll start by reading the back. My acerbic wit in writing is often what gets me into trouble. It gets me thrown in jail every now and then, and it gets my brewer's license revoked. Here is one of the best things I've written. It's in the back of this can. On January 20th, 2025, America's twice impeached convicted felon signed an executive order that changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Boo! Yes, by forgetting to reserve his only family brain cell that day, our lobotomized swamp donkey of a president unilaterally erased 5 centuries of geographic history. Regardless of what our McDonald's fart-filled blimp of a wannabe dictator says, I told you I leaned a little bit on one side of things. The sane half of America, not the inbred cult of MAGA rockbiters, which you often see drive by our bar, honking their horns and blowing coal up into the atmosphere, they will always refer to that body of water correctly and with respect to our southern ally. We created the Gulf of Mexico Mexican lager for those in America who still have the courage to stand up to bullies and respect the world order that's held together by a common belief in democratic ideals and the rule of law. Salud! Salud! Okay, are we ready to sing a song? Yeah! All right. Okay, it's going to be a German drinking song. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Eine Prosit, der Gewinntlichkeit. Come on, guys. Eine Prosit, der Gewinntlichkeit. 1, 2, 3, super. Okay. I just did that because I needed another drink. Okay, so the reason we wanted to talk about the first time, not the first time, but this is the best time in the story to bring it up. The most important time that I broke the rules was when I proposed to my then girlfriend, now fiance, Tracy. we were in wine country making this wine, which you'll have later, and I proposed to her, and she said yes, and I was happy. So about 2 hours later, we were a couple of bottles of wine in, and over the news came the report that there was an assassination attempt at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Now, I was a little drunk, and I started rolling my eyes, as I'm guessing most of the rest of you did as well. And I felt like since we had already had this thing called Free Beer Day that I've been talking about and made a lot of money on, which is a day I will pour free beer at this bar all day long, as well as our tap room Madison, the day that the orange shit gibbon goes away forever. But I had already come up with that, and I'm like, oh, great. So I typed on Facebook, I said, either a brother or sister in the resistance needs to work on their marksmanship, or Trump faked another assassination attempt to get over a bad news cycle. I kind of meant to say something first to set off the other one, but the first thing is what everybody glommed onto. And within 7 days, I was visited by the FBI and the Secret Service in that very table right there. And that is the first time, that was the most scary time of all the times that I've supposedly broken the rules, and that the First Amendment doesn't seem to apply if you criticize the President of the United States, this President of the United States. Okay, next, let's pour Abolish Ice, which is our grapefruit goes. And a goes is a salinated beer, so it's got a little salt flavor in there, and of course, salt melts ice. So that's the reason we have Abolish Ice here.
It's a little warm. Can I get some ice with that?
It's warm because we just delivered all of it today, and my salesman my delivery guy was in and out. So I apologize. The story behind this is that when I was questioned by ICE or by the FBI and the Secret Service, I think I got a little bit of what it felt like to be detained or to fear of being detained. And we all have read that if you actually are detained, there's a company called Geo that spends zero amount of money to make sure that people that are detained are treated even like human beings. There's been plenty of people that have died in detention. There have been plenty of people that have been fed mold in detention or getting sick, bad water. So we have to abolish ICE, and any politician who is just saying we should do something to stop the abuse is not paying attention. ICE is a secret service for the president it's growing in order so that they don't have to abide by Supreme Court rulings and that they just answer to the president of the United States. The immigration is just a ruse. It's a growing paramilitary force that is not the army, that is controlled completely by a president. One thing we're doing is the Minocqua Brewing Company is donating $500 to the ICRR, which is the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant Rights and Refugees, because they're the heartbeat of the resistance. We're also donating to the Immigration Bond Fund, which helps get people out of detention centers when they need to. So that's a lot of the money that is raised here. Okay, next, we're gonna pour Resistance Ale, and this beer was never supposed to be this beer. This beer is supposed to look like this.
Oh yeah.
This label was made before Trump was elected president, and it was supposed to be called Madam President, and we was supposed to be Kamala, who was built on the only way that a female black president could get elected is she had others that she had to stand on the shoulders of, which would be Martin Luther King, Ruby Bridges, who's the first black girl that went to a segregated school, Rosa Parks, who was on the back of the bus, and Barack Obama was the first black president. That was supposed to be the label. So not only were you and I completely gutted when Trump won the election, I also had made I also was extra gutted because I had a beer that was already made that I didn't have a label for. So we quickly made, instead of Kamala, it was the Statue of Liberty. And behind the Statue of Liberty were the 4 presidents who I believe saved America when America needed saving most. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt during the first Gilded Age. We are now in the second Gilded Age of America, which means the oligarchs own everything and the rest of us own very little. And then finally, World War II with Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So I talk about this one third because it kind of fits in the whole scheme of the drinking stuff. But this actually comes first because while we are all in a resistance mentality right now, this brewery has been in a resistance mentality since 2020. And I will tell you all the things, all the rules that I broke, apparently, that put me in jail and that almost got this place canceled over and over and over again, which means that I'm not so worried about being canceled by the state of Wisconsin because I've been through this a million times. What happened first was we put a Biden sign on the end of the building, which was about 2 football fields over there. Has anybody had been to that previous building that I owned? It's the Minocqua Brewing Company. It's huge. Now it's a bed and breakfast. It's called the Naughty Pines Supper Club. So we put a huge Biden sign during COVID times because most of the restaurants and bars across America were suffering. And we needed leadership, and we needed somebody to believe that COVID was real, and we needed help because we were the ones spreading it by having people sit around a table and be sociable. And we needed help. We got a little bit of help in the beginning, and then we didn't get help the second time by Mitch McConnell because he would have had to, by the Senate passing the second round of PPP money, he would have had to admit that Trump was lying to us. And he was saying that COVID wasn't real. And so I put a Biden sign up because I thought I was going to go bankrupt because we only make 70% of all of our revenues only happen in 3 months around here. And a restaurant can't survive if they don't have anybody coming in the wintertime. And I certainly wasn't going to put people around a table and breathe on each other and give each other COVID in the wintertime. So I thought I was going bankrupt. I said, fuck it. If I'm going to go bankrupt, I'm going to go down swinging. And so I put this huge Biden sign up. All of a sudden, a couple of days later, Oneida County says, I've broken a county code. My sign is too big. Now, you've all seen pretty big Trump signs, haven't you? So they said my sign was too big and they're going to charge me $250 a day until I took it down. That amounted to about 30 days before the election, about $8,500. I went online and I said, I'm going to keep that sign up, and if anybody wants to buy a T-shirt to help me pay for this fine, here's a link to the T-shirts. I sold $100,000 worth of T-shirts in 4 days. Even the Trumpers in Louisiana were like, you should have the right to hang up that sign. And so that was the first experience I had trying to get canceled by my MAGA government up in Minocqua. The second and third, wait, hold on. The second and third time was when the town said I had to put a parking lot in instead of a beer garden over here. And I simply said no, and we've sued them in federal court. And what ultimately happened is, you see this pork chop right here, which was supposed to be the parking lot. We made sausage and made a stupid parking lot, which is right here. And I still got my beer. And because of that, I've named a beer Grateful Fred Red Ale, because that's my lawyer who said I had to put his face on a beer can if he got me my beer garden. We don't have cans of that, so you can't drink that right now. But we have an Oktoberfest. My guys just forgot to deliver it. It's down in Madison. So that's the second time I got hosed by my government. The third time was Oneida County tried to zone me out of existence by saying I'd broken all these zoning codes. The funniest one was when they said we didn't have a covered dumpster. And when somebody did a Google Maps search and they found 100 uncovered dumpsters in like a 20-mile radius of this place, the guy across the street, who I call the Westboro Baptist Church of Minocqua, he's the Lakeland Times, he's got an uncovered dumpster to this day across the street from us. The Oneida County Courthouse, who met to zone me out of existence, also has an uncovered dumpster in the courthouse itself. So we beat them. We had to sue them in federal court. A couple $100,000 later. Thank God I have a large social media following that helps us with our legal bills, or else I would be dead right now. Okay, let's go. We're going to do Freedom Trail Kolsch. So Kolsch is wonderful. It tastes like a biscuit. It's from the Cologne part of Germany, is kind of where the flavor profile comes from. Ultimately, this drink, we have a Casablanca theme because this is the Freedom Trail, was how you got out of Germany. If you were an enemy behind enemy lines, you went through Northern Africa, you ended up in Casablanca, which is that famous movie is in Casablanca. Then you went to Portugal and you came back to America from Portugal. So that's the resistance part of this beer. I'm changing my talk about it right now. I want to talk about freedom because we haven't had a lot of freedom as a brewery in the state of Wisconsin. As soon as we came out with our first beer called Biden beer, it was another Kolsch actually. That's why we're talking about it. We called it Biden beer, inoffensive and not bitter. Because Biden was certainly not my first choice, but he was the better choice than the alternative. So I said inoffensive and not bitter. So we sold $50,000 out of the gate. Everyone was so euphoric that Biden had won. Every month we were killing it. We were selling more beer than any other craft brewery in the state of Wisconsin for the first 3 months of Biden beer. I immediately got a contract by General Beverage, which is the largest distributor in the state of Wisconsin. They put me in touch with Glenn's Beer, which is the largest craft beer distributor in Chicago. I was like, this is great. I just hit a gold mine. Somebody got to the 80-year-old head of General Beverage, and they said, you can't work with them. They're too political. Some Republican got to the president who's rich and doesn't care anymore because he's 80 years old, and he scuttled the deal. And ever since then, we have not been able to get a single distributor in Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, or Illinois because it's a very rarefied air. And they all talk to each other. They all don't want me to exist because beer distributors are generally right-wing because families throughout generations control certain brands, and they don't have to work that hard to keep control of those brands. So yet again, being blocked or being put out of business is the theme of today's talk. So that's the Freedom Trail Kolsch. But what we've done, because a lot of people love our beer nationwide, a lot of people like the fact that I speak truth to power, and so they want the beer, and they're willing to pay $25 in shipping to ship $50 worth of beer to them across the country. It doesn't make any sense to me, but God bless them, or else I'd be out of business. So we found a way to go down to Illinois because Wisconsin, the other time I was breaking a rule was I was trying to ship beer to those people, which was allowed during COVID. It was allowed. All online beer shipping was allowed during COVID because nobody really wanted to be hanging out with each other in the grocery store. So somehow or another, when COVID was over, they determined that the safest thing that was happening, which was shipping beer across to people, was no longer safe, and they didn't allow it. They cut off my market by 50% when they told me I couldn't ship beer online to Wisconsinites, or I couldn't ship beer from Wisconsin to other parts of America. So I almost went out of business on that day that they called, the Department of Revenue called. So what did I do? I found a brewery and a distribution partner in Illinois to be able to get my beer to 44 states because that's who wants my beer. I figured out a way to do it even though they tried to kill me. And somehow or another, I've done it in Illinois, and they figured out a way to say that the Illinois beer that I'm making is not legal. But we will move on to the next beer because I'll talk about that when I talk about fascist tears, because that's fascism right there. But we're going to move to Rushmore Shandy. Mount Rushmore Shandy. You have never seen the faces of the people on this can because they're people who donated $500 to help the Monaco Marketplace get off the ground. So I promise, we did a big Kickstarter campaign last February. We raised $250,000. I created a website called the Monaco Marketplace where we have 120 now progressive companies selling progressive goods. And we're doing that so that we can boycott companies like Amazon. We can boycott Georgia Pacific, who's owned by the Koch brothers. when and if America no longer has free and fair elections, which I fear might happen, the only thing we can do is boycott and strike nonviolently in America. And if you're going to boycott, I want to make it easy for you to boycott, which means I created the Amazon for progressives called the Minocqua Marketplace. It's small right now. I refer to it as the fuck Trump Etsy at the moment. But the goal is to be able to boycott everything and to be a one-stop shop for all your everyday goods. So we had to raise money to do that. The other time I was stopped is when I went out to the venture capital community. And believe it or not, I know some of those guys because I went to Harvard University. So a lot of my friends are in the banking world and the venture capital world. And they're like, but Kirk, you make fun of rich people every day. Why do you think we're going to give you money? I'm like, because it's good for America. And they're like, that's not how we think in the venture capital community. We want a return on our investment. And it's not AI. It's not a good return on the investment. So another time I was blocked was in financing the Minocqua Marketplace. And I went back to the people and I raised $250,000. And that kept us alive. There's a theme running through this talk. It's called when and if somebody puts roadblocks in your way, you figure out how to get around them. And when and if your government puts roadblocks in your way, you have to resist and you have to keep fighting. And so I'm hoping that some of this rubs off on folks who are worried, too worried to fight. Let's talk about wine. This is the weirdest combination I've ever done. Usually I do wine in the beginning or the end, but it didn't fit the story this time. So the story won out. Yes, can we do, choice wine. Oh, we need to give people cups. Right?
On the cups?
Yeah, cup. Oh, do you guys have cups? Oh, we don't have to give them new cups. Just drink up. We're going to put wine in that glass. If this was Sonoma, you should be mad at me for asking to do that. But this is northern Wisconsin, so I think we can all figure it out. All right. So, okay, so fast forward. Why are we in the news right now? Why have I been on the Daily Mail, USA Today, People Magazine, Newsweek, and most importantly, New York Post, which is Rupert Murdoch's New York Times, which is the jankiest New York publication there is. So why have I been in the news? Because the Department of Revenue in Wisconsin, as of next Tuesday, has said they're going to revoke my brewer's license to make beer in the state of Wisconsin. Why are they doing that? I would argue it was because many of the distributors in Wisconsin still don't like the fact that I'm alive, and they run the Tavern League of Wisconsin, which is a very powerful lobbying organization in the state of Wisconsin, who often helps get Republicans elected. The Tavern League is full of rich beer distributors and full of Republicans, both of which don't like me very much. So I'm thinking that might be the reason they're trying to pull my license, or even more nefarious would be that I certainly have backed. I may or may have not run for governor. It was an embarrassing period of my life. I didn't get enough signatures. I didn't have an organization. It was really bad. We didn't get on the ballot. However, I am very close to overlapping 100% with a woman that's running for governor who's leading the pack by crazy percentage points. And her name is Francesca Hong. She's a friend of mine. So Francesca Hong is a Democratic socialist. And somehow the powers that be in the Democratic Party think that the word Democratic Socialist is a boogeyman. Where in fact, most Americans love when they hear that politicians care about the working class. They care about affordability. They care about health care for all. They care about child care. They care about not being corrupt. And they care about not giving money to AIPAC so that we can fight crazy wars in the Middle East and slaughter Palestinians just because they're brown and they don't pray to the Star of David. I just said that off the tongue, and that should be written down. So we care about Democratic Socialists because they care about doing things the right way and not being corrupt. Unfortunately, the Democratic Party is used to getting a lot of money from special interest groups similar to the Republican Party. The Democratic Party may think their hearts are in the right place, but they're still taking money from all the people whose hearts are in the wrong place. And that's the difference between the democratic socialists and the establishment. So I've been crucifying Governor Tony Evers for not being strong enough to try to push against Trump. And I have a feeling he's gotten tired of my criticism. So that's another reason I think that we might not have a brewer's license on Tuesday. But why are we drinking wine? Because one of the stupid reasons that I'm losing my brewer's license, because I made this wine with Jim Obergefell, who is Obergefell v. Hodges. He's a gay man from Ohio. He's a co-owner of Equality Vines. Without him, we would not have marriage equality in America. Obergefell v. Hodges is a Supreme Court case that gave us marriage equality. He's a winemaker, or he's the owner of a wine company. Perfect partner for me to make wine. We made this deal to make wine. All I needed is a distributor to do it, to bring the wine in to Wisconsin. I found Larry Heisley Jr.'s son, believe it or not, who's a Milwaukee Brewers son, who has a distributor's license in Mequon, Wisconsin. These guys imported the wine for me, but they didn't have a car to drive it over to Madison, and they didn't have any salesmen. So I was like, we can pick it up. We drive all over the state because we don't have a distributor. So the Department of Revenue says that I am illegally being a distributor because we pay for the wine, but I'm actually picking it up to go from Mequon to Madison, and they said I'm breaking the law by doing that. That was just one of the stupid reasons.
You put a wine bottle in your car and drive any place.
Exactly. So liquor laws are old. The only thing that's older than liquor laws are prostitution laws. And you can't change them because everybody thinks those things are bad, and so nobody wants to vote on making booze easier or prostitution any easier. So that means the laws never change, and that means a lot of the laws are really screwy and make no sense to anybody. So that's why we poured you wine in the middle of the story, is because they're trying to put me out of business for the most ridiculous reasons. And I would argue it's a First Amendment issue and not a regulation or tax issue. Okay, fascist tears. Not only are we going to talk about eagle-eyed Kash Patel and Pete Hegseth, whose haircut is weirdly similar to a shit emoji that you can see on Facebook. This is called Fascist Tears, Their Frustration Brewed for Your Inebriation. So we just put this one out. It is going like wildfire all across America right now because we are going viral all across America right now, and I figured people might want to see this when they share the Facebook post. So what happened? It used to be MAGA tears. It used to be MAGA tears. You're right. It looked exactly like this.
Why
we
did you
changed it
change
up.
the name?
Come on, because MAGA doesn't exist anymore. Now it's just fascist, or they're Christian nationalists, or they're the KKK, or they're racist assholes. Did you hear that? Facebook, they're racist assholes. So fascist tears. I'll tell you what was fascist that happened a month ago. We had about 7 Department of Revenue agents with guns that came to this tap room and came to my tap room in Madison and confiscated all the beer that I made in Illinois. And why did I make that beer in Illinois? Because they forced me to send beer online from Illinois to the rest of the country, and we found a willing brewer to do it, and they're great partners. It's a great Norwegian family who the son's the brewer, the mom's the owner. It's our beer. We contracted it by law, and they said we couldn't do it because we were importing it over state lines. We are fighting that in court because there's a Supreme Court case called Granholm versus Heald that says that you cannot discriminate against the same industry over state lines to give preference over the industry in the state. So we're going to sue and we're going to win. But yet again, they took $25,000 of our beer and are now holding it in a warehouse that is temperature controlled, but it's not at 40 degrees where beer loves to be. And so that is called, in my mind, it's a First Amendment. They're trying to put the Minocqua Brewing Company out of business by taking our beer and by revoking our licenses because we're speaking truth to power. And we're speaking truth to even Democratic power, and that really pisses them off because I was a good card-carrying Democrat until Trump won and every Democrat in office started rolling over and playing dead. Okay, next beer. muckraker. We always end with this one. So there's 4 beers that are all resistance beers. There's 4 presidents that saved America who needed saving most. Teddy Roosevelt was the president during the first Gilded Age. The first Gilded Age, if you've read about it in the history books, it was Carnegie with steel, Vanderbilt with railroads, J.P. Morgan with banks, Rockefeller with oil. All these guys owned everything in America, and the rest of America didn't have much at all, and they were suffering.
Thank you.
Have you ever heard of a guy named Upton Sinclair?
Yeah.
He wrote a book called The Jungle, and it was about terrible working conditions in Chicago at a meatpacking plant. Upton Sinclair was called a muckraker. Upton Sinclair, because without that book, without him explaining that big corporations were building shady houses where their employees worked that didn't have any heat. They were building grocery stores where they'd put sawdust into the Spam so that there was no nutrition in the meat for these workers. They would not have any sort of doctors or safety net if you got hurt on the job. So if somebody got hurt on their job, their families would starve, and they'd be starving in a drafty home with poor nutrition. That was what Upton Sinclair wrote about, and it disgusted Americans so much that they helped Teddy Roosevelt get rid of the big monopolies 100 years ago, which was Carnegie, Rockefeller, whatever. Guess what we have today? We have Jeff Bezos. We have Elon Musk. We have Mark Zuckerberg. We have Larry Ellison. They're all investing every last dime of the money that they kind of got through tax breaks that America gave them to become big industrialists. They're investing all that in AI, which is going to make us all serfs at some point. It's going to make us all slaves at some point. We're going to lose immense amounts of jobs in the next few years. As it gets smarter and smarter and smarter, we're going to lose even more jobs. So we need to fight against that. And so we have people who are fighting against that, and they're the muckrakers of the second Gilded Age. I would say one of the best muckrakers I know is Heather Cox Richardson. Who is unbelievable because she writes about history. She's a professor in Boston. She's now the voice of sanity that so many of us need to read every day to make sure that we're just not going crazy ourselves. We have other guys like the Midas Touch Network. We have the Young Turks on YouTube. We've got a friend of mine. I got a few friends, Kazim Rashid in Naperville. I've got Amanda Nelson for Amanda's Mild Takes. They've helped us raise money. Believe it or not, I call myself a C- version of Heather Cox Richardson. I'm a C- version because I ain't that smart, but I have hired a lot of smart people, smarter than me, to write on our Substack page every single day of the week. I try to sell you beer, of course, when that happens, but you're still getting wonderful political, progressive articles that have to do with Chicago, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and we have been rated number 50th among all of the U.S. political Substack pages in the country on numerous occasions. We're actually a pretty big thing. You know why? Because every time you buy a t-shirt from me online, I get your email address. And I shovel that straight up into my Substack account, and then we give you that content mostly for free. So that is what we are doing as a company to be muckrakers. We are trying to be an independent, progressive media site because we no longer have trustworthy media in America. Bezos bought the Washington Post. Musk bought Twitter. Larry Ellison bought CBS and is trying to buy CNN. We no longer have as much reliable news, and the stuff that is reliable is underfunded. And so we have to speak out, and we have to find news sources that we trust, or at least are not state propaganda. And that's all I have for you today. But I want to leave you with this: if we can stay alive through all of these hurdles, because because I care about America and I care about Wisconsin, and more importantly, I care about just being treated fairly. If I can do that, and you live in a small town in Wisconsin that's redder or as red as this town, there's something you can do as well. And it might not be able, to get on Facebook and raise a bunch of money to sue people, but it might be running for school board, because the Moms for Liberty are a bunch of nut jobs and they're trying to take over our public schools. It could be running for your county board, because God, if I had a couple decent county board members who weren't all contractors who just wanted to get rich from being in local city council, if I had a couple good ones, I wouldn't have had to go through so much shit in this town. All of you guys can run for county board in a small little county in Wisconsin. And that's all we have to do to make America and Wisconsin a little bit better and a little bit more equal and a little more fair, is to run for office and take back power. So thank you, everybody, for coming. I appreciate it. I do. I have a legal defense fund. I posted it on Facebook a couple times in the last few days. It's on our Substack. Every time I write on Substack, there's a link. Donate to our legal defense fund.
He has a product idea for you.
What? I do.
Mitch McConnell, Life Elixir.
Oh yeah, that was.
Oh yeah, got it. Cheers.
What did you?
Hold on, I'm gonna refill.
Mitch McConnell ID.
Nice.
What is it?
Turn off the Facebook. End stream.